Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
What official business? Shaoran hesitated for a moment before hesitantly asking, Xiao Qi, didn't we agree to take the postgraduate entrance exam together? Why did you secretly transfer your student status? Shaoran had been spending the past 2 days in school, and she had accidentally heard about it. She wasn't very sure, so she came to ask Xia Jinqi. Xia Jinqi was also stunned by the question. I didn't transfer my student status. She had been busy with her marriage recently, so she had no time to care about other things. She didn't even go to school. I happened to hear it when I went to the dean's office today. I think it was your family who came to handle the formalities, Shaoran said softly. Xia Jinqi came back to her senses and frowned. They didn't inform me. As soon as she said that, there was a knock on the door behind her. Xia Jinqi said anxiously, Shaoran, I'll call you later. Then she hung up the phone. She turned around and opened the door. She saw that it was Yin Jun. She opened her mouth and asked, Did you mean to transfer my academic status? Her university parents had never asked about it. If she suddenly transferred her student status at this time, it shouldn't be their doing. In that case, the only one who could interfere in her private life was Yin Jun. Yin Jun originally came to see if she was really uncomfortable, but seeing her glaring at him angrily, he figured that she wasn't sick anymore. I can let you go to a better school. Yin Jun didn't deny it. Transferring her student status was indeed his idea. Because that day, he heard Yin Qing say to Xia Jinqi that if she had any difficulties in her postgraduate exam, she could go to him. Yin Jun wanted to eliminate any possibility of Xia Jinqi and Yin Qing having any contact. Moreover, when he was handling this matter, he had not thought of discussing it with Xia Jinqi beforehand. He had always done things his own way and had never discussed it with anyone. Unexpectedly, Xia Jinqi directly rejected him. I just want to stay in my alma mater. It was no wonder that Xia Jinqi would be angry. Her parents' indifference from a young age had allowed her to develop an independent character. What university to go to, what major to study, and whether or not to take the master's examination had always been her own decision. Now that a husband had suddenly appeared, it was already enough to mess her up. It had even directly decided the major events in her life. Was he planning to quietly settle this matter without her asking? After hearing her rejection, Yin Jun pursed his thin lips slightly. His pitch-black eyes were suffused with a faint cold light as they landed on her face. Be obedient. His tone was cold and harsh, and there was already some displeasure in it. Xia Jinqi might be obedient in other matters, but this was the only one. She only wanted to continue her studies. Moreover, she had promised Shaoran Wenjing that the three of them would take the postgraduate entrance examination together. She did not want to separate from her friends. I don't want to transfer schools. Xia Jinqi repeated her wish. She raised her head and looked at the man standing in front of her. Why didn't she realize that his desire for control was so strong in the past? Yin Jun narrowed his eyes slightly and did not take a step back. Then you don't need to go to school. No one expects you to earn much in the future. His meaning was very clear. Either you transfer schools, or you don't even need to go to school anymore. Xia Jinqi's heart clenched when she heard this. She raised her watery eyes to look at him angrily. You, what right do you have to care about me? Because I'm your husband. A familiar and smooth sentence flowed out from the corner of Yin Jun's cold and thin lips. Xia Jinqi really wanted to tear apart this damn marriage with her bare hands. She had given birth to so many restrictions for nothing. Could she still take back what she said last night about not regretting her marriage? She was very regretful. After a moment of stalemate, Xia Jinqi decided not to argue with him about this. The school record was hers. When the time came, she would go back. Why did you come to find me? She snorted and casually asked in an unfriendly tone. Yin Jun seemed to be very dissatisfied with her disdainful tone. He furrowed his brows slightly, but did not say anything. He only said, I have something to do tonight. I have to go back. Oh, Xia Jinqi nodded. She had almost forgotten that this was Long Qingxin's courtyard. She and Yin Jun were only here to pay a little visit. Since he said that he was leaving, she naturally had to follow him back. However, Xia Jinshi did not expect that when Yin Jun brought her to see Long Qingxin before they left, they would coincidentally see Qi Maolin in a suit and tie sitting next to Long Qingxin. The two of them were drinking tea as if they were chatting. In an instant, Xia Jinshi felt a loud bang in her mind. Didn't they say that the guest from this morning had already left? Why was Qi Maolin still here? When Yin Jun saw her ashen face, he could not help but curl his lips. The one who came this morning is Hua Qishan's grandson. Xia Jinshi narrowed her eyes. Hua Qishan? What a familiar name. Without waiting for her to think further, Yin Jun had already pulled her to Long Qingxin. He simply told her that he wanted to leave, but Long Qingxin did not stop him. She only told Xia Jinshi to come and play often. Xia Jinshi lowered her head the entire time, not daring to look at Qi Maolin. Qi Maolin was also a smart person. Ever since Xia Jinshi clarified at the wedding that he had mistaken Xia Jinshi for someone else, he no longer mentioned that he had seen Xia Jinshi at the casino. It was the same this time. Qi Maolin only looked at Xia Jinshi twice and didn't say anything else. Xia Jinshi was still rejoicing when Long Qingxin suddenly opened her mouth and asked, "Maolin, don't you know my granddaughter-in-law? Why didn't you say anything?" When Qi Maolin heard this, he raised his eyes to look at Xia Jinshi, who was smiling sheepishly. Afraid that he would say something like, "We met once at the casino," Xia Jinshi quickly interrupted, "Grandma, I've only met Mr. Qi once, so I don't really know him." As Qi Maolin's eyes moved, he seemed to have understood Xia Jinshi's meaning. He added, "Yes, Mrs. Yin is a very interesting person." It was indeed very interesting, wasn't it? He recognized her at the wedding, but she refused to admit it at that time. Now, she took the initiative to say that she had met him once. The heart of a woman was really like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. He couldn't understand it. Is that so? Long Qingxin looked at the two of them and didn't continue to ask. She waved her hand and asked Yin Jun and the others to leave. When she turned around, Xia Jinshi quietly wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. Fortunately, Qi Maolin didn't mention the casino. Xia Jinshi thought about it all the way until she got into the car. Only then did Xia Jinshi finally let out a sigh of relief. However, she always felt that the atmosphere in the car was very subtle. Xia Jinshi carefully looked at the man who was focused on driving beside her, feeling a little suspicious. Usually, he would see such an opportunity and ask her all kinds of questions. Why was it so quiet today without a word? If he didn't ask, she would find it strange instead. "Why don't you ask me why I met Qi Maolin at the casino?" Hearing this, Yin Jun's thin lips curled into a triumphant smile. She still admitted it. "Didn't you say that you were going to get sleeping pills?" He returned the words that she had lied to him to her. Xia Jinshi choked and coughed awkwardly. Then, "Aren't you worried that I'm a gambler?" "You don't know how to play," Yin Jun answered with absolute certainty. Coincidentally, there was a bend. He was holding the steering wheel with one hand, and his handsome face was slightly tilted to the side. He was extraordinarily handsome. Xia Jinshi was a little dazed for a moment. It was not easy for her to regain her senses before she asked in confusion, "How do you know that I don't know how to play?" "You don't know how to play cards." Thinking that she did not understand the meaning in her words, Yin Jun did not mind saying it in more detail. This time, Xia Jinshi was completely stunned. Yes, she didn't know how to play cards. But how did he know? After a moment of silence, Xia Jinshi suddenly remembered that yesterday afternoon, Yin Jun took her to a game and ran away halfway, leaving her alone. The game that day happened to be a gambling game. So, that day wasn't a coincidence. He deliberately set it up. The purpose was to see if she knew how to play cards. Xia Jinshi, who suddenly came to a realization, had a feeling that she had been sold and was still helping others count their money. She shook her head and stared at the cold-looking Yin Jun, sighing in her heart. Black-bellied, black-bellied. Step by step, they were all scheming against her, right? It was a pity that she had accidentally walked into his trap. Could it be that it was you who arranged for me to meet Qi Maolin here today? Xia Jinshi clicked her tongue. She really wanted to pry open this man's head to see what was inside. Every step he took, how did he connect the dots? It's considered a coincidence. Yin Jun didn't expect Qi Maolin to come to grandmother's place. However, it was indeed his intention to lure Xia Jinqi into admitting that she had met Qi Maolin at the casino. Xia Jinqi did not believe in coincidences. How could there be such a coincidence? One by one, could they be linked together so perfectly? She did not even notice it at all. Okay? Once again, she gently touched her temples, feeling a myriad of emotions. Just what kind of person did she marry? Have you already investigated me thoroughly? Taking a deep breath, Xia Jinqi asked one last question. However, Yin Jun shook his head and frowned slightly. There were still many questions in his heart that had not been solved. For example, Yi reported about the people in the casino, but it wasn't to gamble. What would she be doing it for? Yin Jun knew that even if he asked her, this girl wouldn't tell him the truth. Since that was the case, then he would directly bring her to Las Vegas and personally see what she was doing in the casino. Therefore, when Ji Sinyu suggested their honeymoon to Las Vegas, he immediately agreed. Unfortunately, Xia Jinqi hadn't thought of Yin Jun's intentions, and Yin Jun didn't plan to tell her, so as to prevent her from making preparations in advance. The car drove up the Huan-Chung Expressway. Looking out from the side of the car window, it was just enough to take in the entire Rao City's neon night scene. However, Xia Jinqi was not in the mood to enjoy the beautiful scenery at the moment. She stretched out her hand and hammered her heart. It was so stuffy there. We'll go to Las Vegas in 2 days, Yin Jun said faintly, his voice cold and clear. However, Xia Jinqi snorted in a fit of pique. I don't want to go. I'll write you a prescription for sleeping pills. Yin Jun's reply made Xia Jinqi feel even more uncomfortable. When he unintentionally saw the girl beside him being choked to the point that she was beating her chest and stomping her feet, a gentle smile appeared in Yin Jun's pitch-black eyes. She was like a thick book. Every time she flipped a page, she would bring him countless surprises. It turned out that women were such magical creatures. It was not as boring as when Tao said. On the contrary, she seemed to be able to make him laugh easily. When she returned to the Yin family, Xia Jinqi's, but hadn't even warmed up when someone from the Xia family came. They said that there was something going on at home, and they wanted to take her back to discuss it. Xia Jinqi originally didn't want to go back, but because of the Xia family's reputation, she could only bite the bullet and go back. Before she went, Yin Jun pulled her back. Are you okay going alone? Xia Jinqi's heart warmed up at his sudden concern, but she immediately smiled in relief. In the end, they're still my parents. They won't eat me. With that, she got into the car. After Xia Jinqi left, Yin Jun narrowed his eyes and made a call. Wang Meng, find a few reliable people and keep an eye on the Xia family's every move. Okay, I'll do it right away. Wang Meng never asked why. However, recently, he found that second young master, Yin, was becoming more and more concerned about the Xia family's matters. When Xia Jinqi returned home, she found out the reason why he was in such a hurry to get her home. Xia Tianjiao was sick. Her high fever did not subside, and her kneecap and patella were contused with many soft tissues. Xia Jinqi's mother was anxious. She wanted to send Xia Tianjiao to the hospital, but she refused and kept tossing around at home. Xia Jiqian was out socializing, and she could not contact her eldest daughter and third son. Hong Xianglin could only look for this easy-to-bully fourth brother. Fourth brother, quickly go and see your second sister. She has been nagging about something called qing. I don't know if she's confused from the fever. Although Xia Jinqi was very unwilling, she still went in to take a look when she saw her mother's anxious look. Xia Tianjiao lay on the bed. Her face was burning red, and she furrowed her brows in discomfort. She was no longer as arrogant and domineering as usual, and she was no longer as annoying. Yin, Qing. Xia Jinqi thought she had heard wrongly. Why would Xia Tianjiao call Yin Qing's name? However, when she stopped in front of Xia Tianjiao's bed and listened carefully for a while, she realized that she was indeed calling Yin Qing's name. Yin Qing? Why would she call Yin Qing's name? Xia Jinqi frowned in confusion. Where did she meet Yin Qing? Hong Xianglin also paused for a moment. Yin Youqing's illegitimate child? How does your second sister know him? At this moment, Xia Tianjiao, who was lying on the bed, started to talk nonsense again in a daze. Yin Qing, I want. Hong Xianglin immediately went forward to coax him. Okay. Mom will go find him for you. Don't be anxious. After saying that, she turned around and instructed Xia Jinqi, go and find Yin Qing. Isn't he your uncle? Ask him to come over. Xia Jinqi was a little speechless. Why did she call Yin Qing over at this time? It's not convenient for me to contact him. Xia Jinqi directly refused. She looked at Xia Tianjiao, who was lying on the same bed. Even if she had a fever, no one would die. There was no need for so many people to guard her. She turned around and was just about to leave when Hong Xianglin started crying behind her. You unfilial daughter, are you trying to anger me to death? I raised you up and married you off in a grand manner. You don't recognize me now, do you? You're not even willing to do this little thing that I asked you to do. A flurry of bombardments caused Xia Jinqi's scalp to go numb. Helpless, she could only call Yin Qing in the end. After the beep, the phone was picked up. Xiao Qi. Her tone was filled with unconcealable excitement and excitement. Yin Qing must have been waiting for Xia Jinqi's call these days. However, such excitement brought a lot of burden to Xia Jinqi. She hesitated before asking, Yes, it's me. Do you know Xia Tianjiao? Yin Qing was silent for a moment. He knew that he could not hide what happened in the afternoon. Did she look for you? No. She had a fever at home and kept calling your name. My mother said that she wants you to come over. Xia Jinqi braced herself and said, but she still felt that it was inappropriate. She added, It's okay if you can't come, Before she could say anything, she was interrupted. You're at the Xia family's house. Yes. Xia Jinqi nodded. I'll come right away. Yin Qing answered without saying anything else. After hanging up the phone, he looked up at Yin Jun, who was drinking tea with Yin Yucheng in the courtyard. When he was at home, he could barely speak to Xiao Qi. Now that Xiao Qi was at the Xia family home, it was a good opportunity. As expected, Yin Qing kept his word. In less than half an hour, he appeared at the Xia family home. He gave a simple glance at Xia Tianjiao, and Yin Qing only said coldly, she deserved it. Fortunately, Hong Xianglin was not here at this time. If she heard this, who knew what would happen? Xia Jinqi quickly got up and closed the door. She asked, So, she invited you to dance at the dance this afternoon? And then you deliberately sped up and let her fall? Yes. Yin Qing nodded. He had no intention of hiding anything. Xia Jinqi coughed awkwardly. Now she knew why Xia Tianjiao had bruised her soft tissue. She had only kneeled for 3 hours in the morning, and she was already dancing in such high shoes in the afternoon. Should she say that her courage was commendable, or that she would do anything to achieve her goal? But Xia Jinqi looked at Yin Qing suspiciously. You've only met her for the first time. How could it be? In her impression, Yin Qing was a rather gentle person. He was handsome and was the most popular professor in the school. Logically speaking, he should not be so hostile towards Xia Tianjiao when they first met. Because she treats you badly, Yin Qing answered without thinking. Then, he looked at Xia Jinqi worriedly. Xiao Qi, are you okay? Did your mother make things difficult for you when she called you back? Xia Jinqi didn't say a word. She was already in a difficult situation. She had to force her to call Yin Qing over just to see an unconscious person lying on the bed. Helpless, Xia Jinqi took a deep breath and changed the topic. Yin Qing, only you won't scold me for being so stupid. You haven't resisted for more than 10 years and don't know how to leave this house. Everyone felt that she should raise the banner of resistance and make a scene with her parents to fight for her position. Even Yin Jun was the same. But only Yin Qing, only he wouldn't. Only he would always comfort her in such a situation. What's the use of resisting? Some things are destined from birth. No one can change it. Yin Qing smiled bitterly. He understood Xia Jinqi's feelings. To be honest, he and Xia Jinqi were very similar. Even though he had lived in the Yin family since he was young, in reality, he didn't have any status at all. His family treated him like heir. There would always be people who would ask, why didn't you leave that home? Why didn't you resist? Was it useful to resist? He was originally an illegitimate child. He was an existence that shouldn't exist. What position did he have to leave? Thinking of this, Yanqing glanced at Xia Jinshi again. Perhaps they were somewhat different. Xia Jinshi could endure because she cared about this family and her own family. But HMPH, if it wasn't for the Yin family's estate, how could he have left his birth mother when he was young and lived under someone else's roof? Yanqing pondered for a moment, and Xia Jinshi smiled again. Perhaps when I cultivate myself into a person with a heart of stone, I will completely cut off relations with this family. Don't. Yin Qing hurriedly stopped her. It's fine as it is now. Do what you think is right, and don't care what others say. He liked this kind-hearted little Qi, although it was precisely because of this that she was treated as a good-for-nothing by others, and was bullied wantonly. Xiao Qi, remember this. A truly mature person will still treat this world gently after being hurt by the world. Xia Jinshi's heart was slightly stifled when she heard this, but she quickly came back to her senses and stood in a military posture towards Yanqing with a smile. All right, great professor. As expected of a good teacher and good friend. Just a simple sentence had already benefited her greatly. Yanqing looked at the lively and cute Xia Jinshi in front of him gently, but he sighed softly in his heart. I can't treat this world that has hurt me gently, but Xiao Qi, promise me that you must do it. Not long after the two of them spoke, Xia Tianjiao, whose fever had subsided, woke up. In her daze, she recognized the man in front of her and shouted excitedly, Yanqing. Just as she finished shouting, she turned her eyes and saw Xia Jinshi. Her face immediately darkened. Fourth brother, why are you here? When Xia Jinshi heard this, she saw that Xia Tianjiao had already woken up. She immediately turned around and walked out of the door. Yanqing, let's go. She was already awake, so she could at least leave, right? Yanqing did not even glance at the woman on the bed. He followed Xia Jinshi's footsteps. He had come to see Xia Jinshi in the first place. What did the life and death of the woman on the bed have to do with him? Xia Tianjiao looked at the two people who had left, and her face turned green with anger. Xia Jinshi, you already have Yin Jun. Do you still want to snatch Yanqing from me? She struggled and moved forward, wanted to catch up to Xia Jinshi and teach her a lesson. However, her legs are not able to move properly. After Ming Gran exerted force, her entire body fell onto the hard floor along the edge of the bed. With a bang, Hong Xianglin, who had just entered the room, was so frightened that she quickly came over to help her up. Jiao Er, you're awake? What happened to you? Get up quickly. Xia Tianjiao grabbed Hong Xianglin's hand and asked anxiously, Mom, was it Yanqing just now? Was it him? Yes, your sister called him over. Hong Xianglin nodded. Are you feeling better? Xia Tianjiao directly ignored Hong Xianglin's concern and turned to look in the direction where Xia Jinshi had just left. She was so lost that she seemed to have heard Xia Jinshi and Yanqing talking about something. From the looks of it, they should be very close. When did they meet? Mom, I want to marry Yanqing. Xia Tianjiao suddenly blurted out without thinking. Hong Xianglin was immediately stunned. What? Him? But your sister has already married into the Yin family. So what? She can marry. Why can't I? MOM, help me. I want to marry him. Xia Tianjiao roared and shook Hong Xianglin's arm nonstop. Don't be agitated. I'll discuss it with your father first. Hong Xianglin hurriedly comforted her second daughter, but her heart was extremely conflicted. The Yin family could only have one heir. They had already decided to help Yin Jun if they were to marry Jiao heir to Yanqing. Then who should they help? Xia Jinshi and Yanqing left the Xia family together. They came in the Xia family's car. On the way back, Yanqing picked her up along the way. They were all going back to the Yin family, so it was indeed on the way. Xia Jinshi thought of Yin Jun's warning. She had originally planned to go back on her own, but Yanqing had invited her again and again, so she couldn't refuse. Halfway there, both of them were hungry. They happened to pass by their alma mater, so they drove to look for food. There was a street behind the school's residential area, which was filled with food stalls. The students who came and went were all students from this school district. Some had just finished their self-study, and some had just returned from outside. Xia Jinshi picked a dumpling stall that she used to frequent and sat opposite Yanqing at a simple fast food table. In front of her were 2 plates of steaming hot dumplings, and beside them was a noisy and bustling street. Such an atmosphere could easily evoke memories of the past. Xia Jinshi ate a dumpling in one bite and let out a long sigh of satisfaction. Even the taste is exactly the same as before. It hasn't changed at all. In front of Yanqing, she never had to hide anything. She only cared about being her truest self. It's been a long time since I've been here. Not to mention, I really miss this taste. Yanqing ate a few in a row, and the smile on his lips was sincere from the bottom of his heart. Separated from the world of the Yin family, he was actually a very pure person. Xia Jinshi quickly finished a large plate, and even the bottom of her eyes were tinged with a hint of contentment. After she was 70% full, she put down her chopsticks and looked at Yanqing apologetically. I'm really sorry about what happened tonight. I also didn't expect that my mother would insist on calling you over. When did we become so distant? Yanqing seemed to be a little dissatisfied. He frowned slightly and looked solemnly at Xia Jinshi. Xiaoqi, do you still remember what I said? Even if you marry into the Yin family, our relationship will not change. Indeed, if it was in the past, Xia Jinshi would definitely not thank Yanqing. But now, it was finally a little different. Xia Jinshi was silent. In her mind, she only thought of what Yanjun had said, telling her to stay away from Yanqing. He did not like to see the two of them together. Yanqing waited for a while, but did not receive an answer from Xia Jinshi. He sighed softly and said with incomparable sadness, "It's been 4 years. Just because of a superficial marriage, you want to draw a line between us. Xiaoqi, isn't this too unfair to me?" Perhaps it was the plate of dumplings in front of her that reminded her of the past. Or perhaps it was the current Yanqing who looked really too sad. Xia Jinshi's heart was stabbed with pain. Yes, in her heart, Yanqing was just like when Jing and the others. They were all her friends. For years of friendship. If it was just because of a marriage, wouldn't it be too heartbreaking? Seeing that Xia Jinshi was also struggling in her heart, Yanqing struck while the iron was hot. When we're in the Yin family, you call me uncle, but outside, you still call me Yanqing, okay? This? Xia Jinshi hesitated for a moment and finally agreed. Okay. After getting a positive answer from Xia Jinshi, Yanqing smiled again and said happily, "This is my little Qi." Xia Jinshi also smiled. Perhaps she shouldn't have minded this identity so much from the beginning. As for the expectation she had for Yanqing, she thought, let it go with the wind. From now on, they would only be friends. This was also good. When the dumplings were almost done, Yanqing got up to take a call. When he came back, he said to Xia Jinshi with a difficult expression, "My mom has something to ask me. I have to go back." "Little Qi, you can go back by yourself, right?" "Oh, then you go quickly. I can go back by myself." Xia Jinshi saw that he didn't look too good and thought that something important must have happened, so she hurriedly said, "Okay, I'll leave first." Yanqing nodded, then turned around and walked in the direction of the parking lot. After he left, Xia Jinshi paid the bill. She was not in a hurry to go back to the Yin family, so she stayed alone at the school gate. Yanjun secretly transferred her academic status. This was still a troublesome matter. Based on her understanding of Yanjun, the matter that he had decided on was not something that could be easily changed. She had to think of a way to coax him into agreeing to stay with her. Using force was definitely not going to work. With his personality, if his attitude was too tough, it was very likely to anger him. At that time, he might really not let her continue her studies. As she walked, she was thinking when suddenly, a piercing whistle sounded behind her. Beep, beep, beep. Xia Jinshi instinctively looked back, but 2 beams of light shot straight into her eyes. She narrowed her eyes in discomfort. When she reached out to block the light in front of her, she inadvertently saw a military camouflage car. Then, the lights of the car were turned off. A handsome figure jumped out of the driver's seat and quickly walked towards her. "Girl," a familiar voice and a familiar name. Xia Jinshi was slightly stunned. This tall, handsome man in front of her with a small buzz cut and slightly tanned skin. Was this still the Urwo who dyed his hair yellow and always acted casually in her memory? Huating. She couldn't believe her eyes. 7 years was enough to make a person undergo such a drastic change. Huating had already walked up to her. He snapped his fingers and said proudly, "How is it? Are you so handsome that you can't recognize me? Do you regret it? You got married before I came back." Xia Jinshi was really too excited, so much so that she didn't even notice the unnoticeable bitterness in Huating's tone when he said those words. Her big, misty eyes suddenly narrowed into a crescent moon. She was so happy that she almost jumped up. "It's really you. Urwo, why did you only come back now?" Looking at the sparkling eyes of the girl in front of him, Huating's heart more or less felt comforted. "Who told you not to miss me? If you miss me, I would have come back long ago." He pursed his lips and actually looked a little wronged. Ever since he was young, he liked to cause trouble with Xia Jinshi. He didn't know how to speak properly, and Xia Jinshi had long been used to it. "Who dares to miss you? The famous second generation of the Hua family. I can't afford to provoke you," she said sourly, wrinkled her nose, and looked at him with a smile. Not to mention, the training in the army seemed to have really made him look a lot more handsome, especially the camouflage suit on his body. People couldn't help but respect him. "Little heartless." Huating snorted and quickly said, "Let's go, get in the car. I'll take you for a walk." It had been a long time since they last met, so naturally, they had to get together. "Okay." Xia Jinshi had just taken a step forward when the phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was Yin Jun calling. "Where are you?" The moment she opened her mouth, she asked for her location. Xia Jinshi answered without thinking, "I'm at the school gate." "What's the matter?" "It's 10 o'clock. His tone was a little unhappy. "What's wrong with 10 o'clock? Xia Jinshi asked in confusion. Could it be that she had something to do at 10 o'clock? "On the second day of our wedding, my wife is still wandering around in the middle of the night. What do you think the headlines will say?" Xia Jinshi finally snapped out of her daze. It was already 10 o'clock. She estimated that it would be 11 o'clock when she returned to the Yin family from here. If she went back so late, she didn't know if there would be reporters waiting for her. When that time came, she would have to write a bunch of nonsense again. Just as she was about to rush back, she turned around and saw Huating waiting for her by the car. It had been 7 years since they last met, and she really wanted to chat with him. Moreover, she had just promised Huating that they would get together. Xia Jinshi suddenly had an idea and asked Yin Jun, "Are you busy now? Why don't you come out and play with us? I have a friend who just came back from afar." It was a problem for her to not go home in the middle of the night alone, so it shouldn't be a problem for her to ask Yin Jun to come with her, right? However, the result was very bone-chilling. The other side of the phone was silent for a very long time. Moreover, there was an eerie coldness drifting over from the other end of the phone, causing Xia Jinshi to tremble slightly. She had almost forgotten who Yin Jun was. How could he come out so casually? Immediately, she tactfully made up for it. "I was just casually saying, I'll be back very soon." After saying that, she directly hung up the phone, afraid that Yin Jun would say something to her again. At that time, she would have to beat her chest again. Whoosh! Putting down the phone, Xia Jinshi looked at Huating with some difficulty. "Erhua, why don't we meet again tomorrow? I have to go back first." Hearing that, Huating couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Your husband urged you to go back." He more or less guessed who had called just now. When Xia Jinshi heard the word husband, she still felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. She laughed dryly. "Yes, I'm sorry." Huating didn't want her to be in a difficult position, so he said happily, "Anyway, I'm back, and I don't plan to leave. We have plenty of time to get together in the future. Let's go, I'll send you back." Seeing that he did not seem to be too angry, Xia Jinshi smiled in relief. Just as she was about to get into his car, she suddenly hesitated. "Do you know how to drive? I remember that you stole your grandfather's car once and lied to me that you knew how to drive. In the end, the car crashed into the wall. After so many years, she did not expect the picture to be so clear when she recalled it." Huating was angered by her words and quickly changed the topic. "How long has it been? Do you still remember? Hurry up and get in the car." Tonight, I'll show you what real driving skills are. At that time, he was young and frivolous, and he did a lot of bad things. Otherwise, his grandfather wouldn't have sent him to the army. Xia Jinqi laughed heartily and got in the car. She was originally just teasing him. She knew that they were still children at that time, so it was normal for them to be reckless. Now that so many years had passed, he must have already learned how to drive. Wasn't he the one who drove here by himself just now? After getting in the car, Huating drove the GPS. As he drove, he couldn't help but look at Xia Jinqi beside him. All right, I haven't asked you yet. Why did you get married so suddenly? You said that you would only get married when you were 30 years old. If he had known that she would be in such a hurry to get married, he would have come back earlier, even if he died. Xia Jinqi was slightly stunned by his question. Then, she said, we have to get married eventually. It doesn't make a difference whether we get married sooner or later. Since her identity meant that she couldn't choose a marriage, she might as well marry Yin Jun. This was the thought she had when she first met Yin Jun. Then, is he good to you? Huating asked again. Yes, he's pretty good. Xia Jinqi nodded. Other than when Yin Jun was angry, the rest of them were pretty good to her. Hearing her answer, the deep worry in Huating's heart more or less dissipated a little. Knowing that she was living well, he was relieved. But even faster, a strong, sour feeling that could not be dissolved rushed into his heart again. Almost from memory, he always had a little follower behind him. His brother called him. It was very annoying. When he played with the remote control car, she clapped her little hands at the side. Big brother Wu drive really good. Really silly. He always looked at her with disgust. When he was punished by his grandfather to stand in the corner not to eat, she always secretly pinched a small rice ball for him. Really stupid. Only rice ball without food. He was far away from home, about to join the army. She hid at home, refused to come out to see him off. Until his car drove away, she ran out, crying and running after his car. What a fool. How could a person with 2 legs outrun a car with 4 wheels? She had always been a stupid girl who only knew how to run around him. He thought that she would be like this for the rest of her life. Therefore, he was at ease to go to the army. Occasionally, he would contact her and he would be satisfied. It was not until that day, when his father had to return to Rao City at the last minute, and said that he was going to attend Xia Jitian's daughter's wedding, that he was shocked to realize that the girl no longer belonged to him. He had applied overnight and wanted to return to Rao City. However, even if he did return, he did not dare to look for her at the first moment. After taking his time to finish what he needed to do, he drove the car. He thought that she had been wandering around her former school, but who would have thought that it would be such a coincidence to run into her? He looked at her walking alone by the roadside, sometimes frowning, sometimes smiling, sometimes slightly annoyed. What a silly girl. She had been alone since she was young. Although there were many brothers and sisters in the family, none of them could play with her. Only he was willing to accompany her. Even though he always called her a fool, he would still leave a portion of his favorite pastries for her and give her a remote control car that he liked. He slowed down the car and turned off the headlights. Just like that, he slowly followed behind her and watched her all the way. When he left, she was only 14 or 15 years old. Now that she had returned, she had already grown into a young lady in her 20s. Her facial features had not changed, only becoming more exquisite. She was taller but still slim. It seemed that she had not been obedient all these years since he left. She had to eat more. She had accidentally fallen into the abyss of memories. When Huating came back to his senses, he realized that his throat was slightly sore and his mood was extremely low. He hurriedly glanced at Xia Jinqi beside him. Fortunately, she was focused on looking ahead and did not notice his loss of composure. Taking a deep breath, Huating stopped his wild thoughts. He was here to congratulate the girl happily. How could he make the atmosphere so awkward? Thinking of this, he tried his best to laugh. If I knew this, I would have come back earlier and missed your wedding. At first, he said it apologetically, but who knew that he would change the topic immediately? You have to treat me to a meal and make up for it. Xia Jinqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at his words. I'm not going along with the meal, and you're rushing over to ask for food? No way. What relationship do we have? Whatever you like, I'll give it to you. But this meal, you have to treat me. After all, we could be considered childhood sweethearts. You and I are lovey-dovey. Hua Ting laughed like a ruffian, his pair of handsome peach blossom eyes also narrowed. It was as if this was the only way to hide the true feelings in his eyes and also hide the sorrow in the depths of his heart. Sure, when do you have time? Xia Jinshi didn't notice the sincerity in his words. She always thought that he was joking with her. Ever since they were young, he liked to say that. Ever since they were together, they loved to play house and get married. You decide. Just give me a call, Hua Ting said straightforwardly. He was back anyway, and the days ahead were still long. Xia Jinshi nodded. Just as she was thinking about the days ahead, the car stopped. Go in. Hua Ting looked at the Yin family's house and sighed inwardly. Such a big aristocratic family, like the Yin family, should not mistreat the servant girl. Thank you. Xia Jinshi did not greet him politely. She pushed the door open and got out of the car. It was already past 11 o'clock. Did Yin Jun sleep? It would be best if he did, lest he get scolded. Just as she was thinking about this, a servant walked over. Young madam, you're finally back. Young master is waiting for you in the study room. Xia Jinshi. What she was afraid of came true. Waiting for her in the study room at this late hour, she would probably get scolded again. Oh, how is young master's mood? Xia Jinshi was prepared to ask the servant about it. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy would you be undefeated in 100 battles. This young master's complexion doesn't look too good. The servant recalled for a moment. When young master instructed her to wait for young madam at the door, his expression was terrifyingly gloomy. After hearing this, Xia Jinshi, who was already feeling uneasy, gulped and walked towards Yin Jun's study with a heart full of fear. The servant was very tactful. She only walked downstairs and quietly left. Xia Jinshi took a deep breath and slowly walked to the door of the study. She bent her fingers and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Yin Jun's clear and moist voice came from inside the door. His tone was flat, and one could not tell whether he was sad or happy. Xia Jinshi slightly let out a sigh of relief and pushed the door open to enter. The light in the study was very gentle. It was not dazzling, but instead gave people a warm feeling. In the warm light, Yin Jun was crouching on the desk, flipping through some documents. You're looking for me? Xia Jinshi walked over in a few steps, her big black eyes carrying a hint of a smile. She was suspected to be a lackey. Seeing that it was her who had entered, Yin Jun quietly suppressed the photo in his hand and leaned gently against the chair. His phoenix-like eyes narrowed slightly. What time is it? Those 3 words, which were neither salty nor indifferent, turned into a gust of cold wind that surrounded Xia Jinshi's body. I happened to run into an old friend tonight, so I came back late. She was like a child who had done something wrong. She lowered her small head and waited for the class teacher to reprimand her. Yin Jun raised his long eyebrows slightly and looked up at the girl in front of him. She was very self-aware. Hua Ting, the grandson of old Chief Hua, his clear voice slowly sounded, carrying a silk-like texture. Xia Jinshi had been anxiously waiting for the volcano to erupt, but who knew that he would actually mention Hua Ting? How do you know? She stared at him in surprise, suddenly feeling that he seemed to know everything. Could it be that everything about her was under his control? Are you two very close? He didn't answer but asked instead, his black eyes unusually deep. Childhood playmates. Xia Jinshi didn't go into detail. In fact, in her heart, Hua Ting was more like an older brother than Xia Chuanqiu. Yin Ju nodded. His black eyes, which were as calm as ice jade, were calm and gentle. He waved at her. Come here. Xia Jinshi. She thought that he would fly into a rage. In the past, every time he found out that she was with Yin Qing, he would fly into a rage. How come this time? When he found out that she was with Hua Ting, he seemed to be very calm again. Was it really as Long Qingxin had said, that Yin Qing's existence was considered a taboo in Yin Jun's heart? Although she was puzzled, she still obeyed and walked to his desk. He casually pointed at the outermost document. Open it and sign it. What is this? Xia Jinshi muttered as she flipped open the document. She took a closer look. It was actually a transfer of some of the Yin Corporation shares. 6% of the shares was not a small amount. All of them had to be transferred to her name. She instinctively rejected it and threw the document back to him. Why are you giving it to me? I don't want these things. She frowned, not understanding what Yinjun meant. Why did he suddenly give her so many shares? What did he mean? Yinjun was slightly surprised by her reaction, and his tone was light. Don't want them? Perhaps you don't know yet, but when these things are converted into cash, you won't be able to spend them all in a few lifetimes. Xia Jinqi certainly knew that this 6% share was a huge figure, but she wouldn't receive a reward for doing nothing. Moreover, she didn't want to get involved in the Yin family's internal affairs. She only wanted to quietly be an ordinary person. I have enough money to spend. She raised her chin arrogantly. In the matter of money, she was inexplicably sensitive. Perhaps, because of what he said before, she married into the Yin family for the sake of money, which hurt her self-esteem. However, Xia Jinqi had forgotten that there were some things in this world that could not be resolved with just a single word of rejection from her. Yin Jun leaned back on the bench. His well-defined fingers tapped gently on the table, one after another, and it was unusually dull. After a long time, he finally stood up and walked around the rectangular table. His tall figure stood in front of Xia Jinqi. He reached out his hand and took the Mont Blanc fountain pen. He stuffed it into her hand, along with the transfer of shares. You may not want it, but you must accept it. This is the condition you agreed to your parents before the wedding. When Xia Jinqi looked up, she happened to see that his black pupils were as deep as ink. She understood what he meant. These shares were not for her, but for her father, Xia Jitian. To put it simply, it was just a small gift from a businessman to an official. Of course, the Yin family could not openly give this money to Xia Jitian. They could only use Xia Jinqi to change the way they did things, to make everything reasonable and reasonable. But Xia Jinqi was inexplicably resistant to these things. So, we got married because of this. For these coins to be easily transferred from one person's pocket to another person's pocket, her voice was extremely cold. It was as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. It was abnormally cold. It's just mutual benefit, Yin Jun said faintly. He had always seen through this marriage more thoroughly than she had, and was more rational. Xia Jinqi could not be as rational as him. The most primitive instinct in her body taught her to be emotional. What about you? Is this the only reason you got married to me? When she said this, Xia Jinqi felt her head heat up. She did not think too much and just opened her mouth to say it. Even she did not realize that she was starting to care about his opinion on this marriage. Yin Jun was stumped by her question. Yes, the families wanted them to get married for benefits, but why did he agree to it? Even though his parents forced him to get married, if he would rather die than comply, his father and grandfather would not be able to do anything about it. Now, he had half of Asia's economy in his hands, even surpassing the Yin family. Logically speaking, he could completely ignore this marriage. But that day, he and Fang Xiaoan were drinking in a bar when she suddenly barged in. That night, the lights were dazzling, the music was noisy, and the liquor was spicy. Everything was so fast, as if a huge fire was burning. He still remembered that she was wearing a sky-blue one-shoulder dress. Her chestnut-colored, long hair hung loosely behind her back, and a few strands of mischievous hair hung down from her collarbone. Her features were light, and her pair of big black and white eyes were clear and clear, like a piece of warm, unpolished jade. In this noisy environment, she instantly soothed his hot heart. Inexplicably, his line of sight was instantly attracted to her. After that, he couldn't take his eyes off her. The second time he saw her was to take wedding photos. He pretended to be fierce and threatened her, threatening her to not show up at the wedding scene. Who knew that not only was she not afraid, but she also went against him everywhere. He still remembered that kiss on the beach that afternoon. She took the initiative, right? But in the end, she bit him hard. Ah, what an unreasonable woman. He thought that the moment he made up his mind to marry her, it should be at the beach. She told him the reason why she wanted to get married. It was so pitiful, like a furry little animal, so soft that it made one's heart ache. The thought of giving her a home arose in his heart. After that, getting married seemed to be a matter of course. It was not an exaggeration to say that he married her for the benefit of both parties. However, if one had to describe it this way, It would make one feel that something was missing. In Xia Jinqi's eyes, Yinjun's long silence was no different from acquiescence. Her heart ached, and for some reason, she felt somewhat inexplicably disappointed. You don't have to say it. I understand what you mean. With that, she shook her wrist and wrote down her name. 3 beautiful words jumped onto the paper. In the end, she was just a pawn used by her parents. She shouldn't have had any extravagant expectations. After signing, she went around Yinjun and prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, the moment she walked past him, her wrist was grabbed forcefully. She instinctively raised her eyes, but she suddenly crashed into a deep sea. His jade-like black eyes seemed to carry some kind of magic power and easily sucked away her soul. Because it's you, Xia Jinqi. A deep, suppressed voice suddenly came from above her head. She was slightly stunned. Before she could recall the meaning of his words, he had already nodded and kissed her lips. Instinctively, she wanted to retreat, but he grabbed her slender waist and pressed her into his embrace. She could not help but reject him. She was forced to raise her head and accept his kiss. Her entire body felt weak, as if she had lost weight. She could barely stand and could only rely on him. His kiss was gentle at first, but it stopped after a slight taste. Slowly, it was like a spark falling on the prairie. Then, with lightning speed, it ignited the prairie fire. He suddenly felt that it was not enough. Just this simple kiss was not enough at all. Just as Xia Jinqi was also immersed in his superb kissing skills, the hand that was holding her waist suddenly exerted force and carried her to sit on the desk. In the blink of an eye, the change in position and height made Xia Jinqi blush. At this moment, her gaze was parallel to his, unfamiliar and exciting. Yin Jun's dark eyes were slightly deep as he stared at her originally fair cheeks, which were faintly tinged with red. There was no coldness in his watery eyes as usual, but there were 2 pools of autumn water in them as he looked at himself timidly. That little appearance of wanting to reject him but still welcoming him, that unrefined and outstanding appearance really made his heart tremble and his blood vessels churn. At this moment, she was so beautiful that it was soul-stirring. Do you want it? He was asking for her consent. Due to his lack of experience last time, he had made her cry. This time, he decided to ask her first. Xia Jinqi's little face turned red from his question, almost bleeding. Although she was still a virgin, she more or less knew about matters between men and women. She had been mentally prepared before she got married, but who would have known that he would actually ask her in such a serious manner if she wanted it? Did he have to torture her so much? She bit her pink lower lip. Reason told her that she should reject him directly. However, she did not say no out of the blue. Instead, she hummed softly and threw the question back to him. Do you want it? This was equivalent to handing the decision to Yin Jun, which was also equivalent to a different kind of consent. Even she herself felt surprised. She was originally a person who did not like physical contact, but every time she looked into his pair of deep black eyes, her brain would be unable to think. If it was him, then it should be possible. Yin Jun slightly curled his thin lips, leaned over, and held her small earlobe. A warm and moist breath blew into her ear, and together with his deep, seductive voice, he said, yes. It was so itchy. Xia Jinqi's body shrank slightly because of him, and a string of brilliant fireworks exploded in her head. Oh my God, he really knows how to grind people. That short word seemed to have removed all of her defenses and vigilance out of thin air. She did not care about anything, only wanting to sink into his infinite gentleness. Yin Jun did not wait for her to speak anymore. The fine, moist kisses slid down her slender neck quietly. Xia Jinqi instinctively raised her jade-like arms and wrapped them around his neck, inadvertently shortening the distance between the 2 of them once again. Each of his kisses carried a scalding temperature. Inch by inch, they burned her whole body. When the love reached its peak, he suddenly hugged her horizontally in his arms. Xia Jinqi let out a startled cry and hurriedly wrapped her arms around his neck. Seeing that he had already carried her to the bedroom, her heart was like a beating drum. She was very afraid. I haven't showered yet, she stammered. a little wanting to escape. She heard that it would be very painful and very shy. For the first time in her life, she was naked in front of a man. Sensing her evasive gaze, the corners of Yin Jun's lips curled up slightly. He directly carried her and turned around, walking towards the bathroom. "Just nice. Let's take a shower together." When he said this, a seductive smile spread from the corners of his lips, and his deep eyes shone with a gem-like brilliance. At this moment, he was different from any other time. He was a little gentle, and there was a bit of lewd words coming out of his mouth. His smile was also abnormally bewitching. This kind of him was like a poppy and had a fatal attraction. Xia Jinshi gripped the collar of his shirt tightly, her mind blank. In front of him, she always had no ability to resist. Yes, a handsome and rich man like him, no matter where he was enough to make people intoxicated. And this kind of him was still her rightful husband. She felt as if she had been bewitched by him. Her whole body was soft, and she could only snuggle in his arms. The hot water rushing down from the shower rose into a cloud of smoke that filled the bathroom. It also lingered in front of Xia Jinshi's eyes, and everything seemed to become blurry. She only felt that she was very hot. Her head was very hot, and her body was also very hot. How did she take a shower? She could not remember at all afterward. She only knew that he carried her to the big bed, and then his tall body pressed down on her. At that time, the clothes on her body had already been taken off. She shyly placed her hands in front of her chest, and her body trembled slightly. He could feel her helplessness and nervousness. He kissed her gently, bit by bit, until the nervousness in her heart gradually dissipated. Her body was like a flower that was slowly blown open by the spring breeze. One petal after another, she finally accepted him. The moment she sent him in, she clearly felt a layer of obstruction. The pain instantly struck her. Xia Jinshi gritted her teeth, but in the end, she couldn't hold it in, and her eyes were wet. It really hurt. Yin Jun's body was slightly sluggish. He leaned over and kissed away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Only when she got used to it did he slowly start moving. Pain and extreme pleasure intertwined with each other, instantly drowning out all of Xia Jinshi's thoughts. She clung to his shoulder, like a small boat floating on the sea with the waves. Everything but with his giving and desire. Extreme lingering. Before she fell into a deep sleep, Yin Jun leaned over and gently kissed her forehead. Good night. It was almost inevitable that she would wake up late after a night of torment. However, what Xia Jinshi did not expect was that the moment she opened her eyes, she discovered that her entire body was in severe pain. A small movement could affect every nerve in her body, especially her lower body. The pain was as if it was tearing, as if she was silently accusing Yin Jun of his crimes last night. She was clearly such a refined and clean person, with the word abstinence written all over her face. Who would have thought that she would transform the moment she entered the bed? Xia Jinshi supported her sore little waist and sat up. She turned around to look at her side. The man had long disappeared. She was just about to sigh when the bedroom door suddenly opened. She was so shocked that she instinctively fell back onto the bed, closed her eyes, and pretended to sleep. She guessed that the person who came in might be Yin Jun. She was a little embarrassed and did not know what to say, so she could only pretend to sleep. And her guess was right. The person who came in was Yin Jun, who had just finished his morning run. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. When he entered the room, he found that the person on the bed was still asleep. Thinking of the craziness last night, he could not help but blame himself. For the first time, he should have been more careful. But she was so shy, with ice-like muscles and jade-like bones, which could topple countries and cities. How could he hold himself back? He only briefly recalled the scene from last night, and his body began to heat up. Yin Jun suppressed some of the thoughts in his heart and walked slowly to the bed. He stared at her delicate face for a long time, and his cold and deep black eyes sparkled with a bright light. He bent down and placed a small daisy he picked in the garden during his morning jog on her pillow, near her cheek. A circle of white line-shaped petals was petite and delicate, beautiful and charming, adding a hint of serenity to her sweet sleeping face. This kind of small flower, which was praised by the Italians as the national flower, spoke of pure beauty as well as love hidden deep in the bottom of her heart. Unable to wake her up from her deep sleep, he turned around and went to the bathroom next door. After he left, Xia Jinshi, who was dozing off, opened her bright eyes. She almost saw the daisy on the pillow at a glance. She picked up the small flower and subconsciously placed it in front of her nose to sniff gently. A faint floral fragrance instantly permeated her limbs and bones, so comfortable that she couldn't help but smile. This Jun actually gave her flowers, and from the looks of it, he should have picked them in the courtyard, right? So early in the morning, he became a flower-picking bandit? She hugged the blanket and half sat in the bed, looking at the little flower in her hand, still giggling foolishly. The pain and discomfort in her body seemed to have disappeared without a trace at this moment. Xia Jinshi listened to the sound of water coming from the bathroom and was a little stunned. Was this the real marriage? It felt pretty good too. She pulled away the corner of the blanket and carefully got out of bed. She went to the other bathroom and deliberately dawdled for a long time. When she came out, Jun had indeed already left. It couldn't be said that he was pretentious, but he was a little shy. She, who had just learned about love affairs, still needed some time to accept this change. When she went downstairs, it was already almost afternoon. After having a quick lunch, the servant beside Yin Yucheng came to deliver the news. "Young madam, old master invites you to have a cup of tea." Xia Jinshi was a little surprised. Yin Jun's grandfather wanted to have a cup of tea with her? Yes, I know. I'll go over now. She could not refuse. After tidying herself up, she followed the servant into the courtyard. The weather was clear and the sun was shining brightly. In the small pavilion by the rockery pond, Xia Jinshi could see Yin Yucheng sitting alone in the distance. When she got closer, she saw a black sandalwood tea tray placed in front of him. The terraced tray was carved with hundreds of birds paying homage to the phoenix, giving it an extraordinary noble air. Even the teapots and cups were purple sand vessels of the same color. The steaming hot tea soup made people feel relaxed and happy. Xia Jinshi couldn't help but recall that when she saw Long Qingxin that day, she was leaning against the desk and making a dancing. She was also as calm and peaceful as before. From this point of view, these two people were really a good match. It was a pity that they had been separated for so many years. "Grandfather, you were looking for me?" Xia Jinshi asked as she stood by the side obediently. Yin Yucheng had just recovered from his thoughts. Seeing that it was Xia Jinshi who had come, he waved at her. "It's Jinshi. Come and sit." Xia Jinshi followed his instructions and went over. Just as she sat down, a cup of refreshing fragrant tea followed her. She lowered her eyes and was guessing what kind of tea it was when Yin Yucheng's voice sounded again with a hint of hesitation. "Jun Air took you to see his grandmother?" The sudden inquiry made Xia Jinshi keenly sense Yin Yucheng's concern for Long Qingxin. "Yes, I went the night before yesterday." Xia Jinshi nodded. She didn't say much and quietly drank the tea. Yin Yucheng was the one who asked her to come over. He said something, and she answered him. If he didn't say anything, she would also remain silent. Yin Yucheng also drank a mouthful of tea. His slightly turbid eyes seemed to be brewing something. After a moment, he asked again, "Is she doing well?" It was not difficult to hear the eagerness in Yin Yucheng's tone. Xia Jinshi continued to nod. "Grandma seems to be quite energetic." As she answered, she secretly took a look at Yin Yucheng's expression. He was holding a teacup in one hand. His eyes were lowered, and his expression was stunned. Previously, Yin Jun had also said that after Long Qingxin and Yin Yucheng divorced, they had been living alone in Qingxin Park. For so many years, Yin Yucheng must have never visited her, which was why he asked about her like this. However, what made Xia Jinshi curious was that since Yin Yucheng wanted to know about Long Qingxin's recent situation, he could just ask Yin Jun. What she didn't know was that apart from being a successful entrepreneur, Yin Yucheng was also an arrogant man. The affair many years ago and the subsequent divorce caused a huge commotion. It was already a miracle that he and Long Qingxin were able to get a divorce. At that time, although they were no longer young, Their vigor was still the same as before. Both of them were filled with anger, and neither of them contacted each other. So many years had passed, and they were getting old. Some things were finally seen through. In recent years, he often thought of his former wife. He knew that he owed Long Qingxin too much, but he could not bring himself to visit her, let alone ask anything from his children and grandchildren. And Xia Jinqi had just married into their family. There were many things that she did not know, so he could only ask her. Moreover, when Xia Jinqi came back last night, he recognized the qipao that she was wearing. He still remembered that autumn. Long Qingxin was wearing a pink and white qipao. She stood on the bridge of the lotus pond in the Tai temple and smiled. More than thousands of people. She waved at him. Her hand was holding Bai Wan, who was embroidered with lotus flowers. She swayed and teased his heart. Yucheng, come here quickly. The lotus flowers here bloom the best. She called his name. It was crisp and beautiful, full of the marks of youth. She had loved him deeply at that time. Xia Jinqi held the teacup and looked at Yin Youqing's disappointed and lost look. She sighed in her heart. It seemed that Grandpa still cared about Grandma. It could be seen from his expression. It was just that the mistake from that year had been committed. Who could redeem it? If it wasn't for the interference of a third party. Thinking of this, Xia Jinqi couldn't help but think of Yin Qing again. What the elders did originally had nothing to do with the child. In the matter of the past, Yin Qing was indeed innocent. There was no doubt about this. But if it wasn't for the existence of him and his mother, Long Qingxin wouldn't have lived alone for decades. She had heard another version of this story before. On a few rare occasions, Yin Qing had also mentioned his parents in front of her. His parents loved each other, but they were bound by secular etiquette and couldn't stay together. The youngin was sent to a faraway foreign country. Xia Jinqi had always thought that this was a beautiful love story, but who knew that the so-called secular etiquette was actually a third party? Yin Yucheng had achievements and had been immersed in his own world for a long time. His eyes were empty, and the corners of his lips were slightly open. His hands were slightly raised, and even the tea in the teacup was cold without him knowing it. Even the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes seemed to remind him of what mistakes he had made in the past few decades. Xia Jinqi did not make a sound the entire time. She also quietly blew on the cold wind and did not say anything to disturb Yin Yucheng. However, not long after, Yin Yucheng, who was in a daze, actually had red rims in his eyes. 2 streams of hot tears instantly rolled down. Xia Jinqi looked surprised. Grandpa was crying. Was he thinking about Grandma? Perhaps he was scalded by the boiling temperature of the tears. Yin Yucheng suddenly came back to his senses and wiped the corners of his eyes. Xia Jinqi hurriedly lowered her head and pretended not to see anything, to avoid the atmosphere being too awkward. Look at this old man. I called you here to drink tea, but you only care about yourself. Yin Yucheng smiled. He did not know if he was trying to hide the awkwardness just now, but he very straightforwardly changed the topic and asked Xia Jinqi again, have you gotten used to being here these days? Yes, it's quite good. Xia Jinqi was also telling the truth. Everyone in the Yin family treated her quite well. At least, she had experienced the care that she had not felt in the Xia family for so many years in the Yin family. Ji Xinyu was kind to her, and Yin Jun was also good to her. Yin Yucheng saw that she had a gentle temperament and was quiet. She also knew how to speak appropriately and was well-mannered. He was quite pleased with her, so he said, I heard that you've already graduated. Do you want to go to the company? Let Jun Er arrange a job for you. Yin Youcheng's words were also sincere. He knew Long Qingxin's temperament too well. She was proud and arrogant. Her father had the bloodline of the declining Qing dynasty royal family, and he had spoiled her endlessly since she was young. If she looked down on someone, she would never give him a wink no matter what. Since she was willing to give her clothes to Xia Jinqi, it meant that she liked this child from the bottom of her heart. He should take care of the person she liked. As for the way to take care of Xia Jinqi, it was nothing more than letting her enter the company and gain some real power. With Yin Youcheng's current status, the only way for him to express his goodwill was through simple and crude methods like money and position. Coincidentally, Xia Jinqi was extremely sensitive to these things, so she rejected him without thinking. Grandfather, I still want to continue my studies for a few more years for the time being. Let's talk about entering the company in the future. Last night, Yin Jun just said to give her shares. Today, Yin Yuching will let her into the company. What rhythm is this? Want to show her the sincerity of a Yin family to the Xia family? After hearing Xia Jinqi's refusal, Yin Yuching's black eyes paused and his body stiffened. This kid, let her into the company she does not want? His Qing would rather give up everything to join the company. Oh well, that's good too. Whenever you want to do something seriously, just let Jun know. Since you two are already husband and wife, there's no need to be so distant. Yin Yucheng said, earnestly looking at Xia Jinqi. His eyes were filled with an unfathomable expectation. You should help him more. Only when he's good can you live well. Xia Jinqi had heard the last sentence countless times in the past. It roughly meant that only when a man had money and a career could a woman live well. At that time, she scoffed. A woman was a woman. She could be an independent individual. Why did she need to rely on a man to live? Only now did she understand the meaning of these words. She and Yin Jun were already on the same boat. Their lives affected each other. If something happened to the Xia family, if something happened to her, it would affect Yin Jun, and the Yin family stock would fall. If something happened to the Yin family, it would definitely affect Xia Jitian's prestige. Okay, grandfather, I understand. Xia Jinqi didn't refute. Instead, she obediently replied. Getting married had taught her a lot. Only then was Yin Yuching satisfied. Go. Hearing this, Xia Jinqi didn't say anything more. She only stood up and left. It seemed that Yin Yucheng had asked her to come here just to find out about Grandma's recent situation through her. After she left, Yin Yucheng waved his hand and called his butler, Di Chu. How is Qing doing recently? Second Master is very resourceful. He is also swift and decisive. In just a few days after entering the company, he has already poached many of young Master's confidants. Di Chu reported truthfully. His age was even more than 10 years older than Yin Sheng. He was by Yin Yucheng's side. It had been several decades. On the surface, it seemed that Yin Qing had completely controlled the limelight. Even Yin Jun was almost suppressed by him. However, Yin Yucheng smiled coldly, and his eyes were deep and cold. Foolish. He is so eager for success and instant benefits. I'm afraid that he has already fallen into Jun ER's trap. Dichu was confused. Recently, especially after the marriage, young Master does not seem to care about the company's matters in the past. In the past, when Di Chu was in the Yin family's courtyard, he rarely saw Yin Jun's figure. At that time, the young Master only had the Yin Corporation in his heart. However, now that he seemed to see the young Master every day, he no longer had that sense of mystery. Staying at home all day. How could the company's confidant not be poached away? Yin Yucheng smiled instead. He's cultivating in the open, but in the dark. As a grandfather, he knew what kind of person Yin Jun was. Although he seemed to ignore the company's matters on the surface, in reality, he had already taken control of the real power in his hands. Yin Qing had just arrived. Even if he was in the limelight for a moment, it would be difficult for him to contend with Yin Jun in a short time. This kid, the way he planned the strategy, had the style of his past. Di Chu did not understand these things, but from the surface, he was still at a loss. He secretly glanced at the old master. In his heart, he had considered who the old master was going to give the company to. At first, he saw that the old master loved the second master very much. However, he insisted on breaking up the couple. He knew that the second master also liked the young mistress, but he gave a young mistress to the young master. He said that the old master did not love the second master, but he let the second master enter the company again. This round and round, it was really difficult to understand. Yin Yucheng saw that Di Chu frowned and looked confused. He asked him directly, "What's wrong?" Di Chu then said, "Old master, what are you thinking? Second master has entered the company. Isn't he bound to get into a bloody fight with young master? The palms and the backs of his hands are all flesh." Only Di Chu dared to say these words in front of Yin Yucheng. As the most powerful person in the Yin family, no one dared to question Yin Yucheng's words. But this time, How can I not know that the palms and the backs of my hands are all flesh? Achu, the Yin family can only be handed over to the strongest person. They're still young. Let's fight and see who has the ability. After saying this, Yin Yucheng let out a long sigh. The corners of his eyes that were full of wrinkles were filled with endless vicissitudes and helplessness. Dragons gave birth to 9 sons, but sons were different, and his 3 descendants were all outstanding. His son, Yin Sheng, took the initiative to give up the right of inheritance, wanting to make way for Yin Jun. But what about his youngest son, whom he doted on the most? Yin Xing also wanted to compete for this family property. As a father, he should at least give him a chance. The wind gradually grew stronger, and Yin Yucheng seemed to be tired as well. He stood up and walked towards his villa. Dichu watched from behind, his eyes a little sour. All these years he had seen it clearly, and the old master had thought it over and over again, all in order to find the most suitable successor for the Yin enterprise. Perhaps the struggle between the rich and powerful is always so cruel. No, it's not just the big houses, it's all the competitive environments in the world. Some people win, some people lose. It's just, who's going to win? Who's going to know, other than the universe? Yin is in a good mood today. This was the latest news from the company, spread by the secretary who had just delivered the coffee to Yin Jun. In the copy room, a few gossipy colleagues gathered together and started a seminar one after another. I actually saw our president, Yin, laughing. Oh my God, the probability of this is even lower than the probability of a comet hitting the Earth. I didn't expect that in my lifetime I would be able to see such a miracle. Don't be so exaggerated, okay? President Yin really laughed. He was reading documents alone in the office. What could be funny? I think he's looking at his phone. I don't know whose message it is, but it can make our cold-faced king of hell laugh. Could it be from his wife? After all, she's newly married. Had he been checking Weibo recently? Someone said that they caught him and his wife kissing on the street. Yushi was carrying a stack of documents as she passed by the copy room. She happened to hear every word of this gossip. Her legs stiffened, and she couldn't move an inch. The expression on her face was also extremely strange. She suddenly thought of the woman she saw when she went to the Yin family to deliver documents to the president. Her facial features were exquisite. Her figure was slender and well-proportioned, especially that clear and elegant temperament. Even as a woman, she could not help but look sideways. Unfortunately, other than these, that woman did not have anything else. Cowardly and cowardly. She even took drugs. Could it be that the president liked this kind of thing? Clenching her teeth slightly, Yushi could not hide the jealousy that was slowly burning in the depths of her eyes. The hand that was holding the documents also turned white. Although she did not come from a prestigious family, her father was also a small entrepreneur. If it were not for the fact that she admired Yin Jun's reputation, how could she have become someone else's secretary? It was a pity that so many years had passed. When she finally found an opportunity to get close to Yin Jun, he had already married the new, beautiful lady. Initially, it was good to just watch from afar because at that time, Yin Jun did not just ignore her, but treated all women equally. However, Yin Jun, who had always been cold, doted on this woman who did not have a good reputation. With an additional contrast, the desire in his heart also increased. She also wanted Yin Jun's tenderness. She also wanted to have that man. No one knew who had found Yushi in the copy room first. Everyone instantly stopped talking and did not dare to say another word. Other than Yushi's 2 good sisters, the others did not know that Yushi had a crush on President Yin. They only thought that she was President Yan's secretary and were afraid that if she heard about it and went back to report it, it would be over. Sister Yu, do you want to copy the documents? Someone asked Yushi ingratiatingly. Yushi swept a cold glance across everyone in the copy room and snorted arrogantly. If I hear any of your gossips about Director Yin in the future, be careful that I don't inform the Human Resources Department and fire all of you. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and no one dared to say anything more. Most of them did not look too good. When Yushi saw this, she turned her head, stepped on her 10-inch high heels, and turned around to leave with an arrogant look on her face. After she left, someone in the copy room spoke first. What kind of person is that? Isn't she just Director Yan's secretary? Her level is only a little higher than ours, yet she's so arrogant all day long. Soon, someone echoed, "Don't you know? Her father is a little powerful. I heard that he started from the underworld. She's a rich young lady. She never put us in her eyes. She's always shouting at us." Bah, what rich young lady? If you have the ability, go be the president's wife. Stop fooling around. How could President Yin fall for her? Are you blind? I heard that our president's wife is the daughter of a candidate member of parliament. She did not have the time to listen to the gossip of the people behind her. She hurried to the president's office and knocked on the door. After entering, her adoring and infatuated eyes never left Yin Jun, who was working seriously. Chiseled, handsome face, tall body, just simple black and white suit. Well, he set off so ethereal, like heaven. No, 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 no. As she spoke, she consciously or unconsciously bent over. Deep V under the collar, rough waves. The angle was just right for Yin Jun. The meaning behind it was self-evident. It was a pity that her waist was bent to the point of stiffness. Yin Jun had never raised his head to look at her.